Clementine groaned as she opened her eyes. She sat upright and immediately looked at her hands. The blood that once covered them were gone. Memories of what she did haunted her. She did hope something that she thought she would never do. She killed someone. Killed someone out of revenge. She wasn't defending anyone from that madman. She clenched her fists and gritted her teeth. Carver had won, and she knew it. He may be gone, but he succeeded. He turned her into a monster just like him. Her thoughts were interrupted when she saw a pair of hands covering her ears. It felt almost comforting. She looked up to see her mother, Rebecca, and she seemed worried. "You had a long night, didn't you?" Rebecca said. Clementine nodded and she said, I killed him." "I know," Rebecca said. "Luke told me everything." Rebecca added as she moved one of her hands to caress Clementine's cheek. "We've all done things we're not proud of. Carver was an evil man. None of this is your fault. No one who went through could have done better what you did." "I don't know if I could believe that," Clementine said as her voice cracked. Tears appeared in her eyes. I'm not the one who I used to be anymore." "You just need time," Rebecca said. Clementine huffed and calmed down as she said, "Is everyone else okay?" "Unfortunately, no," Rebecca said. "Thanks to Jane, we survived Carver's guards. She saved our lives, and then we had to leave Howe's, and that herd Carver was talking about came." Clementine nodded as she looked down at her now ruined dress and jacket. "That would explain why I'm covered in this gross stuff." "Yeah," Rebecca said as she stifled a chuckle at her daughter's description of the entrails on her clothing. "We managed to get out of Howe's, but that herd separated us. We lost a couple of people, but for now you should concentrate on resting." Clementine could tell that her mother seemed more upset at the mention of the group she had lost people. She was about to ask, but given her current state of mind, she figured that she could wait. However, she wasn't so sure if she wanted to continue resting. "I don't know if I can rest anymore," Clementine said. "Can I go outside?" Rebecca looked unsure. There was a long pause before she said, "Okay." Clementine nodded before she got up and then left the tent, and she and her mother were in. She looked around and noticed some of the group were missing. She saw Becca, Russell, and Gil playing cards amongst themselves, while her father watched her baby sister, who was wandering around and exploring. But she didn't seem to stray too far. The toddler was smart, and she knew better than to wander off because of the walkers. Clementine went over to Gil, Becca, and Russell. They seemed to share a look that she wasn't expecting, as if they were afraid of her. "Hey, guys, won't mind if I join you?" Clementine said as she did her best to ignore the stares. Yeah, sure," Gil said as he scooted over to her room to make room for her to sit. "Thanks," Clementine said as she sat down. She watched as Russell collected the cards and shuffled them for a new match. She would have considered the silence rather awkward, but after everything she went through, it almost felt comfortable. It was so nice to have a moment where she didn't have to worry about everything involving Carver. "You killed Carver," Becca said, which broke the silence. Clementine looked over to Rebecca. "I know, even if the word kill is right for it. His blood is all over your hands," Becca said. "I know, he pushed me too far," Clementine said. "I wonder if that was what Lee was trying to protect me from." "What's done is done. We don't need to dwell on the past," Russell said. "We don't need to dwell on the past?" Becca exclaimed. "What the hell are you talking about? Clementine murdered someone. We don't know shit about this kid." She made a gesture to Gil before she continued. "Zeke is dead. In the past, we exiled people for murdering. We don't trust strangers. We mourn for the people we lost, and there are tears in her eyes. And now we're doing the exact opposite." She stomped away from the rest of the group. Clementine was in shock as she had tears in her eyes as well. Zeke was dead? She had a million thoughts running through her head. She almost didn't hear Russell. "I'm sorry about Beck. She took at Vince's death real hard. And now Zeke," Russell said. Clementine looked up and said, Is Sarah okay?" Russell shook his head. "We lost Carlos too. I'm sorry that I have to be the one to tell you this, Clem," Russell said as he got up and looked at the direction Becca stormed off in. "I'd better go help Beck. You know, she always puts up for this tough guy act to shield herself from the outside world. But deep down she's scared and sad. Sometimes like how she gets overwhelmed. Anyway, I better go talk to her." She walked far away from the two children and went to Rebecca, who seemed to be crying at one of the benches. Clementine shook her head. This had to be a bad dream. First Kenny and now Zeke. While Zeke wasn't part of her first group, she did know a few people who were. She remembered talking to him about Krista and Omid on the 5-day trek to the ski lodge, and she would ask him about the comedical arguments that they had before Krista's passing. It brought a small sense of comfort to her, and now that part was gone. Thanks, Gil said. Clementine looked up with a confused stare. Thanks for not hurting me. I'm sorry you got hurt because of that. No problem, Clementine said. It was a bad situation for both of us. Yeah, you got that right. Did you tell your mom and dad about, Gil gestured to her arms. He was referring to the abuse that she endured from Carver. Clementine grasped her arms and shook her head. No, and you can't tell them. Not yet. Too much is happening right now, Clementine said. But you were tortured. You need to talk to someone about what happened, Gil said. I know, but not now, Clementine said. Gil didn't seem too convinced by her reasoning. Regardless, he grabbed the shuffled deck and started out even 7-out cards for her and himself. Up for a game of rummy? After yesterday? Absolutely, Clementine said. The two proceeded to play several card games. Clementine wanted to get her mind off of everything but the stinging pain in her arms and after the grumbling in her stomach that made it difficult. In addition, she wondered on how Sarah was holding up. She hadn't seen her at all. Zeke groaned as he opened his eyes. He tried to sit upright, but his sore body did not comply. What happened? Zeke muttered. You passed out from exhaustion, he heard Jane say. He looked over in the direction of the voice of Jane was at the doorway. He looked around and noticed that he was in a room with a bed. It looked somewhat roomy. Where are we? Zeke asked. We're in a trailer park, Jane said. This place is crawling with walkers, but I figured this was the best place to take you. You saved me last night. Without you, I'd be Walker Chow. Thank you, Zeke said. You can thank me by getting your strength back. Then we're leaving, Jane said. She grabbed a nearby can and handed it to Zeke. Eat up. The sooner we get out of here, the better. Agreed, Zeke said. He began to eat from the can. It almost felt relaxing with him just eating in bed. It was such a shame he couldn't watch television while doing so. Once he finished eating the chili, he laid back down and decided to get some more sleep. Clementine woke up from the card game and saw Luke, Mike, and Matthew walking up to her mother. Gil was watching them. It's not good, Luke said. The area is completely picked clean. And how is it still surrounded by walkers? Mike said. There's no way we're going to get back in there without getting eaten. Damn, Rebecca muttered. She huffed before said, So what are we going to do? We have no idea how long it will take for our house to clear out. We got no food, no water, no changed clothes, and on top of that, our supplies with Genevieve are running low. Luke nodded and said, We must find an alternative place. I don't know if everyone's willing to go back to house. There's a lot of bad memories there. Agreed. We need to focus on finding a new place, Matthew said. Clementine turned back to Gil as the adults talked about their next course of action. Do you think we should find a new place to live? Clementine asked. Gil nodded. Yeah, my parents and I were going to Wellington, Zeke said. Well, Gil said, it's a place up north near Michigan. I heard it's safe. I heard about it. I think Zeke mentioned it, Clementine said. Gil frowned and said, I'm sorry that he didn't make it. He seemed like a pretty cool guy. Yeah, Clementine said. He always did his best to keep us safe, even putting himself in danger at times. I just can't believe that he's gone. She didn't want to cry, so she said, Let's just get back to playing. Okay, Gil said. He had a worried look on his face. Obviously, he was concerned about Clementine. The girl knew that she also knew that she was at the verge of breaking down. Everything was so much for her. Whoa, hold on, Wyatt said. That broke the girl's thoughts. She looked up to see Wyatt back up from the group of armed men. Clementine stood up to get a better look at the group while Rebecca, Luke, Mike, and Matthew raced over to their guns aimed at the armed men. Gil stood up and get a better look. The group of men looked hostile and dangerous. Who are you? One of the men asked. He had a gruff voice. We're just a bunch of people trying to survive, Luke said. You the leader? the man asked. I don't know. We're not exactly organized yet, Luke said. Clementine noticed Shell and Russell running over to her with their guns aimed at the group. She saw Sarita, Becca, and Sarah at the entrance of one of the tents. Sarah looked pretty dazed, as if she wasn't really there. Plus, her cheeks were red. She must have been crying most of the day. Clementine still remembered how she felt. She remembered that pain that was brought from losing everyone, including her parents and her guardian. The man scoffed. You seem to be well armed, folks. I'm surprised that Carver assholes lets you get close to this community. You knew Carver? Luke asked. Yeah, he's been a pain in the ass as our boss, the man replied. Sounds like you know him too. Clementine noticed that more men were approaching the group. There must have been at least 15 men now. We just escaped from him last night. Killed him and his guards, Wyatt said. The man smiled. Good. I think the boss would be pleased to hear that. Hold on. Know him? The other man spoke. The other man looked over at the other man, who wore a beanie and a few piercings. Hey, Wyatt, the man said. Eddie? Wyatt said with a shocked look on his face. I figured I'd find you anything, you tub of lard, Eddie joked. Wyatt scoffed and said, What took you so long? I had to make an adventure out for it, Eddie said. Wait a second, this is your friend? The same guy who drove you off without you? The man asked. Wyatt rubbed the back of his neck in an uncomfortable manner. Yeah, sorry about that, Eddie. That psycho that was chasing us got a drop on me. I barely escaped with my life. Don't worry about it, man. It was a stressful situation, Eddie said. Besides, things are good now. Really? Wyatt asked with a questioning stare. Yep, that psycho who was chasing us is a member of our community, Eddie said. What? Are you crazy? Wyatt said. That guy tried to kill us. Don't worry, man. That dude's a bit of a nutcase, but if he tries to kill anyone, he's going to be forced to leave, Eddie said. And I'm pretty sure he ain't going to do anything with his kid. He's got a kid? Wyatt asked with a confused look on his face. Yeah, she wasn't with him when he was chasing us, Eddie said. Excuse me, Rebecca said. Pardon the interruption, but you did mention you come from a community. Could you please take us there, please? I don't know, the man said. Can we trust these people, Eddie? They look like they're a bunch of mouths to feed. Oh, come on, man. They have kids with them, Eddie said. I'm pretty sure they aren't slouches. Well, we'll work hard at your community, Luke said. Very well, you could come. But the final decision's made up to the boss, the man said. He grumbled himself and started to look around and started to walk away. Thanks, Ryan, Eddie said. Yeah, whatever, the man grumbled. Eddie turned to look at the group and gestured to follow him. So what the hell you're covering in, man? Eddie asked Wyatt. It smells worse than a dead skunk. You would know, Eddie, Wyatt said with a chuckle. Remember the time TJ and I put a dead skunk on your bed? Eddie laughed and he said, Yeah, I'm gonna get you back for that, you dumbass. Come on, man, we're high. We didn't even know what you were doing, Wyatt said. That doesn't matter. I had to throw away my bedding thanks to you two, Eddie said. We did you a favor, man. Your sheets reeked, Wyatt said. As they continued to reminisce on the past while walking down the road to this supposed community, Clementine couldn't help but giggle a couple at a time. Wyatt and Eddie might have plenty of antics together, but she was glad that Wyatt found his friend. She just hoped that she could get her friend back to her normal self. Despite her joking camaraderie of what Wyatt and Eddie, Sarah didn't smile. Clementine wondered if her friend was gone.